Welcome to the premiere episode of Technically Speaking TV, a new show from the Texas A&M Division of Information Technology. I'm your host, Adam Michael. Today we are joined by Dee Childs, the Vice President of Information Technology and Texas A&M's Chief Information Officer. Kristen Kubenka, who is an Assistant Director with the Division of Information Technology, and the Identity Management Program Manager, Susan Neich. Dee, can you tell us a little bit about IT at Texas A&M?
Sure, Adam. In fact, it's one of my favorite topics, as you might imagine. So Texas A&M, being the largest university in the country, and what do I mean by that? I mean, it has not only the highest student body at just about 70,000 students, but also is the largest physical university in the campus. So as a consequence of that, we have a rather large and rather complex IT environment. Just to give you a few facts about that, we have about 180,000 wired network ports, and at any given moment in time, we may have 110,000 people on our Wi-Fi network. So those are pretty big numbers, pretty astonishing. Besides that scope and scale of what we do on the network side, what's really more important, and the thing I like to talk about more, is about how technology supports our students and how it supports our researchers and how it supports the business mission of the university. So let's talk a little bit about students first. So we have some of the best technology-enabled classrooms in the country, and our students can learn not only in the classroom, but they can learn outside of the classroom. In fact, we have students from all over the world participating in classes being held right here at Texas A&M. When students are abroad and taking study abroad programs, they can also participate in activities at the university. At the same time, we're also part of a national network of research computing, and we have high-performance research computers at our university that support global network of research being conducted. So we're able to ingest large, very large data sets that might be coming from the Gulf with hurricane weather storms and being able to produce weather models and weather predictions. We have data coming in from the ship that Texas A&M University owns, perhaps solar probes, other weather instruments, and a great deal of research coming from our agricultural stations all over the state. So those are some of the things that we do to support student computing and faculty and research computing. We also are very proud of the fact that Texas A&M is very focused on accessibility. And what do I mean by that? I mean giving everybody the opportunity to either take a class online, whether you're blind, whether you have a learning disability, so making sure that all of our IT assets and resources are completely accessible to all of our students and any community member who wants to be able to look at anything on our websites.
Great. So the not just the scale of the number of participants with IT, but the activities that are involved is what you're impressed with at Texas A&M.
Exactly. We feel like we have one of the premier technology environments in the United States.
Kristen, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role at Texas A&M within the Division of IT?
I am lead of the Security Assessment Team within the Division of Information Technology. And security assessment is responsible for determining the security state or the security posture of all of the IT resources across the campus network. So our responsibility is to look for weaknesses or vulnerabilities in those IT resources. And IT resources can cover anything from a laptop to your desktop system to a server in a machine room. And we look for weaknesses and vulnerabilities such as like your camera on your laptop that could have a vulnerability that if it does not get fixed, it can cause someone to take over your camera. And so our job is to be the proactive and on the preventative side or the proactive side, find those vulnerabilities and then remove them. And so we do this by performing vulnerability scans of both the system itself and the web applications or any type of application to find those weaknesses. When we find them, we work with the IT pros across campus in order to fix those issues. And so the interesting thing about vulnerabilities is that vulnerabilities exist in every system. Last year alone, there were over 16,000 unique vulnerabilities identified. This year already we've had over 6,000 vulnerabilities identified, and these are increasing every year. So the goal, and the goal of my team, is simply to remove those vulnerabilities or to mitigate them from being exposed and compromised.
So not only a large number of vulnerabilities, but the number is growing.
The number is growing.
Wow.
Yes.
Susan, why don't you talk about your role with the Identity Management Office, and then maybe also tell us what attracted you to information technology as a career?
Okay. So identity management, really what we do with that is we just provide all the services that support the main campus logon account, which is the NetID. And identity management really, it has two primary goals. It is there to enable business, the university business. For example, all the learning at a distance that Dee was talking about, that's really built on the foundation of identity management. Without those login accounts, people couldn't interact with university services remotely. And so it's become very critical for both the learning experience for students as well as for supporting research initiatives on campus. As far as how I got into IT, actually I grew up in the 80s and I did not touch a computer all through high school or my undergraduate career. It was not until I got into graduate school that I actually started working with computers, and my degrees were actually in the environmental field, and so I got into environmental modeling. And I was working on my master's degree at the same time as I was doing the modeling, and so once I completed my master's degree, I really wanted to understand the computer side of it more, because that was a little bit of a black box to me, and so that's when I decided to get the job with Central IT at A&M, and because of all of my data analysis expertise, it was just a really good fit for me with identity management, so that's kind of how I ended up there, and it's been a lot of fun. I've truly enjoyed it.
Thanks, Susan. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to Technically Speaking TV. We're here with Dee Childs, Kristen Kubenka, and Susan Neitch. Dee, as we mentioned, there seems to be a continued growth in IT. So what do you think that universities and other employers should do to keep up with the demands for tech-related jobs and this possible talent shortage that we're facing?
The Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts that we'll have about 1 million jobs that are unfilled this next year
IT jobs.
in IT, right?
Wow.
Especially in the areas of data science and cybersecurity, like Kristen is in, and so those are jobs that have recently become very complex and very relevant. But 1 million jobs, imagine that overall, is quite a number of jobs to be filled. So I think one of the things that we can do at the university is also related to something we might talk about later on, which is the fact that we have a lot of summer camps at Texas A&M, and so we're encouraging people to begin to look at technology careers by having high-performance computing and math camps early on in their teenage years. So stimulating that interest is one thing that we can do. But I think in terms of other opportunities that we can provide is Texas A&M is really a great workplace, and we really focus on quality of life. So I think continuing to provide a great quality of life at the university. Some of those quality of life things are giving flex time to working parents so that if they need to, they can alter their hours a little bit to be able to go home and take care of children or take care of parents. We can also offer those same kind of flexible arrangements to those living in the urban areas like Houston or Dallas. So with an IT job, you don't necessarily have to be on the spot in a physical location 8 to 5. Much of our work can be done remotely, and we have great communications technologies that allow us to video conference at any given point in time with our colleagues. So those are the kind of flexible quality of life things that we can offer. And I guess I would also just say it doesn't just, it's not just about IT, it's really about offering that quality of life, and health matters to, and well-being matters at Texas A&M, so we're really focused on the whole being of the person. So I think those are some of the things that we can do as Texas A&M University and that other employers and other universities can emulate.
I think something that you mentioned earlier, in your experience, IT professionals who come from a non-traditional computer science or technology background, you've seen those professionals be very successful.
Oh, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, I might mention that I'm a philosophy major.
Oh, really?
Or was a philosophy major at one point in time, and I later on took computer science programs. But in the beginning, that was not a scary transition to me. In fact, it seemed quite natural. And I would have to venture a guess that most of our employees in computer science related fields are not actually computer science graduates. Kristen,
The cybersecurity field in particular continues to grow rapidly, and it's expanding. CNBC recently reported that there's a serious shortage of cybersecurity experts, and they're predicting that this could cost companies hundreds of millions of dollars over the next few years. What are your thoughts about this, and do you expect this shortage of cyber experts to continue?
So I don't expect the shortage to continue. I actually think the field is going to grow, specifically in cybersecurity. And the reason I say this is, unfortunately, every day we have data breaches. You see these on the news, they're reported. And the cost of those data breaches continues to rise. Last year, IBM did a study, and the average global cost of a data breach was $3.5 million. If a company happens to be involved in a mega data breach, which is a breach of over 1 million records, that cost to recover from that data breach can go over $40 million. So these organizations, these companies, they are looking for cybersecurity experts to come in to protect their data, to prevent their data from being compromised and stolen. And so they are looking to fill these positions. They are looking for experts in the field. So I think the number of experts is going to increase, and the field is going to continue to grow. From a personal point of view, it's an exciting field. You have assessments, you have vulnerabilities, you have attacks, you have compromises. Each day is a little bit different, and it is a challenge. So I think people are looking for that challenge in their everyday life, and I think that field is, like I said, going to continue to grow.
Great. Susan, one of the projects that you were recently involved in was the rollout of a NetID Duo two-factor authentication. So this sounds fairly technical, but in fact, I think that most people probably have some type of experience with two-factor authentication in their day-to-day lives. Can you tell us a little bit about what is two-factor authentication and why is it important?
Absolutely. You're totally right. People do have a lot of experience with it already. Anytime you go to an ATM machine to pull out cash, you are using two-factor authentication. So really with authentication, there's 3 different categories of kind of these protocols that can be used. One of them is it's based on something that you know. So if you set a password and you're using that password, that would be an example of that particular category. The second category is something that you have. So this would be where you're swiping the card at the ATM, if you have a mobile phone that you're sending a text message to, or a hardware token that you're using. Those are kind of fall into that category. And then the third one is when you're using something that you are, which would be the biometrics, the fingerprints, the iris scans, that type of thing. And so with with the Duo two-factor implementation, Duo really focuses on the fact that almost everyone has a smartphone these days. And so they have built their offering around that fact, and it's really layering on that something you have on top of the password that we were already authenticating people with. So as far as why two-factor is important, really passwords alone are just too vulnerable. We've talked about how the fact that identity management enables remote access to campus resources, but that does open up some, it adds some vulnerabilities to our systems, because if someone far away is guessing people's passwords, that's just much easier to do, and it's actually becoming extremely easy for people to guess passwords. And so layering on that something you have that really strengthens and protects the account much better, because not only do they have to know the password, they have to have that device that person's using to log in.
So let's say I have my username and password, and I use that to get access to sensitive files. And if my password is guessed or somehow compromised by the bad guys, they can't get access to my data unless they also have my iPhone. Is that the idea?
That is correct.
All right.
That is correct.
Thanks, Susan. Don't go away. Technically Speaking TV will be back in just a moment. Welcome back to Technically Speaking TV. Despite the growing IT job market, Junior Achievement USA discovered that teens who are interested in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM careers, is dropping. In 2018, the number of teenage boys wanting a STEM career dropped from 36% to 24%, while teenage girls interested in such a career was only 11%. Dee, what do you think can be done to stimulate interest, not just in teenagers, but also in university students for STEM careers and other careers in the STEM field?
That's a really great question, Adam. I think a lot of universities are struggling with this, and maybe even some parents are kind of struggling with this. Certainly there's been a trend over the last 20 or 30 years, and that trend is as you described, which is that students are less interested in mathematics, they're less interested in science, and they're less interested in information technology overall, and that kind of translates into fewer graduates in some of those disciplines, and then of course, fewer people who are prepared to enter the job market in those areas. So I don't think all is lost, though. I think one phenomenon is simply that people don't really understand what some of those fields are about. And one of the things that Texas A&M is doing, and I think doing very well, very successfully, is having a lot of summer programs for middle school and high school students. So right now on this campus, this is the summer of 2019, and we've got programs for kids who are interested in robots. We've got gaming programs, high performance computing, math camps, science camps, ag camps. So there's a lot being done on this campus to introduce really interesting and experiential activities to students of all ages. And I think that really translates into having the confidence that is needed to enter some of those careers later. So I think one of the other phenomenon that our human and psychological professors are looking at is the phenomenon of just confidence building in young people, and especially young women, in being able to undertake topics that they don't think they're necessarily prepared for. But that's what our school system is set up to do, is to prepare students, and that's what we take very good care of at Texas A&M, is preparation for what beginning in the freshman years and the sophomore years, leading to more difficult and complex courses later on.
Right. Susan, do you have any recommendations for high school students or college students who may be interested in an IT career?
I think that, whatever career that you're interested in, it needs to be something that you enjoy. The nice thing about IT is that it just applies to pretty much every aspect of life these days. And so really that combination of the information technology tools with other areas really is where you see that innovation. And so, if you're interested in healthcare and IT, that combination, while it may not seem intuitive or really obvious, there really is a strong linkage between those two in a variety of ways. And so whatever the variety of opportunities is definitely there, and it's really, it takes, take the time to explore and play with it too. I'm a professional. I mean, I consider myself a lifelong learner. Again, that's something that I personally value, is that I'm always learning something new, and I really have enjoyed that facet of information technology.
Right. Kristen, would you have any suggestions for students who are interested in pursuing a career in cyber technology or cybersecurity?
Yes, I do. So I have been in the IT field for 18 years now, so for quite a while, and I have been a leader in that field now for about 2 years. And I've learned quite a bit over those last 2 years. It's been quite a change for me. And so there are a couple of areas I think you can focus on in order to be kind of a leader in the security field. First and foremost is, as Susan mentioned, find that area of IT or IT security that interests you the most, whether that be specifically cybersecurity, whether that be networking, development work. But then find that area and then excel in it. Become the subject matter expert in that area so that that natural leadership ability and the expertise comes out in you naturally. It's good to have a balance across all fields of IT, but then really excel in one particular area. Then on top of that, the technology is important, but on top of that is to focus on those interpersonal skills. And this was actually an area that was a little bit difficult for me as I moved into a leadership area. You have to focus on the interpersonal relationships and build strong relationships with your coworkers, with your team members. If you can get a good cohesive team working with you, they are going to work stronger for themselves and for the team as a whole. So you end up with a very strong, successful team. So I think the combination of having the strong technical background, but also the interpersonal skills, the emotional intelligence is very important.
So those soft skills that
The
are
soft
often
skills,
spoken
exactly.
about.
Right.
Well, we have covered a lot of ground here today. Dee, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had covered? Anything you'd like to bring up?
Well, you didn't ask me what's next for
What's
technology at Texas A&M. And thanks to the legislature in this last session, Texas A&M has really benefited from what the legislature's additional funding that was made available to Texas A&M. So we're looking at all kinds of things to really help with student success, to expand the boundaries and the impact of research, and infused in all of that are technology needs to help support teaching and learning, student success, research, and overall the community that we live in. So some of the things that we're looking at in the future for Texas A&M, we have something called the Aggie Cloud, and the Aggie Cloud is a private on-premise cloud that helps support our students, faculty, and staff. We're looking at other platforms in the private cloud to be able to give greater flexibility and agility to our researchers and to our graduate students. We're also looking at, I talked earlier about the 180,000 network ports and our very large Wi-Fi environment. So we're looking at a brand new architecture for our campus network that will better support our researchers, faculty, and students by providing greater agility, greater flexibility, the ability to deliver very large packets of data to any place on the planet and to do so seamlessly. We're looking at optimizing our storage systems, especially for our researchers. And of course, we're looking at the whole territory of cybersecurity so that Texas A&M remains one of the most secure and respectful of your privacy places that you can expect to come to Texas A&M as a faculty member or a student or a parent and know that your data is being protected and that we honor your privacy. So a lot of exciting things ahead for Texas A&M information technology.
Right. Kristen, is there anything that you'd like to add?
So there is. I would just like to encourage young people, or anyone for that matter, who is possibly interested in IT or security in general to pursue that field. It is an amazing field, and it is an exciting field that, as I mentioned earlier, is very challenging, and the rewards in that field are amazing. I would also like to focus slightly on encouraging women to really enter this field. I was at a security showcase recently where we brought in speakers nationwide to speak on security topics. It was an amazing showcase. And the local high school security club, their members were invited to come attend this and be able to hear these speakers. So it was a great opportunity for them. But when they showed up, every member of that club was male, which is fine, but it was a little disheartening to not see a single female in there. So I would really like to encourage young women to get into the cybersecurity field or the IT field and pursue it. It really is a rewarding career.
Susan, any last thoughts?
Well, I would like to circle around to the two-factor authentication. As I said, people are using it a lot in their daily lives. But with all of your online banking and stuff, of all the accounts, I would strongly encourage everyone watching this show to make sure that they do have two-factor authentication enabled on all of those accounts that they want to protect. Because definitely when it comes to your financial resources, you want to make sure no one is getting access to that.
Certainly, certainly. Dee, Kristen, Susan, thank you all so much for being here today and for the key roles that you play within information technology at Texas A&M. On behalf of Texas A&M Division of IT, thank you for joining us as we discuss this important topic. Please join us on our next episode of Technically Speaking TV as we talk about National Cybersecurity Awareness Month with global experts and give you some tips for staying safe online.